What's up? It's Agent Black coming back with another video from the kitchen. Which is crazy because in every one of these videos, you will see that I ain't cooking a damn thing. In the previous video, we were talking about the US Constitution and how it pertains to firearms. Now we're going to be talking about firearm laws and firearm functions. Specifically the type that every gun control activist seems to hate and has no clue about.
Semi-automatic.
Now the first thing I always hear when people talk about gun control is we need more background checks. You know that's already a thing, right? That's already a thing. Anyone who's ever bought a gun before, legally, from an FFL knows that you have to submit to a form 4473, aka a background check. On this form, you will see that it asks you several questions about your criminal history, drug usage, and US citizenship. Upon your completion of form 4473, if you don't have one of these, the FFL then contacts the ATF, who runs a check of your actual criminal background against the information that you provided in form 4473. The duration of this background check varies from state to state. In the state of Arizona, if you don't have any criminal history and you have not been adjudicated mentally ill, then you will walk out of the gun store that day with whatever firearm that you were trying to buy. And you might say, that's fine, but what about the gun show loophole?
There is no gun show loophole. There is only Zool.
If you want to buy a gun from an FFL at a gun show, guess what? You have to submit to a background check. In fact, it is a federal crime to buy a firearm anywhere in the United States from an FFL without submitting to a background check. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've all heard that story from that one guy who knows a guy whose ex-girlfriend's brother's cousin, twice removed on his mother's side, somehow managed to buy a gun at a gun store without a background check. We've even heard the story about the 20-year-old who bought an AR-15 from a gun store without an ID. Two things are happening here. Number one, they're lying, or number two, they're committing a federal crime. Then they ask, well, what about private sales? Yes, you can buy a gun from a private seller without a background check. But you cannot, however, buy a gun from a private seller without a background check in a state that prohibits it. It's a felony. It is also a felony as a private owner to knowingly give, loan, or sell a firearm to a prohibited possessor. Now, it is true that some prohibited possessors do slip through the cracks, but it is not due to a lack of laws. It is due to a lack of enforcement. And adding laws on top of laws that are not properly enforced does nothing to solve the problem. And while we're on the subject of not solving the problem, gun control activists are now pushing for the ban of the AR-15, which is described in the media as a military-grade, high-powered, semi-automatic assault rifle that uses high-capacity magazines. When in actuality, the AR-15 is just a regular sporting rifle. It's not military-grade, it's not high-capacity, it's not high-powered, and it's not an assault rifle. It is, however, semi-automatic, but so is this pistol. Semi-automatic means that there is only one shot per trigger pull. The explosion in the chamber sends the bullet forward and the slide backward. The spent casing is ejected and the slide reciprocates, putting another round in the chamber. Therefore, the gun can only be fired as fast as you can pull the trigger. This is an AR-15. And it functions the same way. To say that you're okay with this, but you're not okay with this, even though they function the same way, and even though this is responsible for more firearm homicides than this, does not make the least bit of sense. Once you explain the function of these specific firearms, and why banning one of them is not only nonsensical, but is also a violation of your rights, you will then be met with the idea that banning this specific type of rifle will somehow dramatically reduce mass shootings in this country, even though most mass shootings are committed with one of these. And also even though there are several different types of rifles that aren't AR-15s, which function the same exact way that this does. Well, you can't hunt with an AR-15. Yes and no. You see, I can hunt with an AR-15, just as long as I'm hunting small game. I cannot, however, use an AR-15 to hunt large game. But it's not because the AR-15 is a so-called killing machine. It's because the AR-15 is not powerful enough to take down large game. No, you need a rifle that is more powerful than one of these, which ironically are all the rifles that gun control activists are okay with me having. Remember, the AR-15 is a semi-automatic sporting rifle that gets one shot per trigger pull. But if I want to put this thing on full semi-automatic, I can't even say that with a straight face. Real talk, this is just a regular ass semi-automatic sporting rifle. There's nothing special about it. But the media will have you believe that as a law-abiding citizen, you shouldn't have it primarily because of reasons that are contradictory. Look, this can't both be described as utterly useless for hunting and self-defense, but simultaneously be a super efficient killing machine. You gotta pick one. I want to give a shout out to the Hispanic Hurricane, aka Sergio Rosas, for letting me borrow his rifle for the video. And yes, that's also legal.